Are you sick of your government? Answer is yes, I already know. What are you sick of? Tell me what you're sick of. Alright, now, tell me who is the one that physically does that to you? Whatever it is, who are you worried about? I guarantee it's somebody with a star on their chest. What does that star stand for? It stands for a shield. What does the shield stand for? It represents the knights. That's why it's war on their left breast, because the knights held their shield in their left arms. Who had knights? The king. What were they? It was their enforcement arm. If y'all ain't got it by yet, you're never going to get it. The police are the enemy of the people. Like it or not, it's the way it is. Yes, you've been indoctrinated to believe that they're your friends. You can call them when you need help and all this other bullshit. Like I said, Jeffrey Dahmer did some good shit every now and then to a few people. He wasn't always a killer that ate little boys, not to everybody. There's no such thing as a good cop. You know, I played that video of that woman in that interview where her 73-year-old mother had her shoulder dislocated and things about the cops, and the lady's like, oh, the few bad ones, you give all the good ones a bad name. You stupid bitch, they're all bad. Just because they all didn't do something to your fucking mom, they did something to somebody's mom or somebody. People can't get past the bullshit that they've been told, and until they do, we're never going to be free. You're not free now. They've sold you the illusion of freedom. Most people have accepted that, and even the people that have accepted that are still unwilling to point at the problem. Why? Because it's been beating their head over and over and over and over again. These people are good. They will help you in a time of need. Yada, 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 blah, 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 blah. Well, I have no need for the police. I will never call the police, ever, for no reason whatsoever. So why should I be forced to obey them? I'm a free grown-ass man, but I gotta obey government? If a government agent walks up to me and says, hey, lay face down in the mud right there, and has a pistol pointed at me, my options are limited. Option one, lay down, which by laying down, I'm admitting I'm not free. My government rules over me. B, try to take off. Probably not going to happen. I can say no, kick rocks, stand there, or try to take off. And at which point, they will force me to lay down. C, fight. And even if I win that battle, I'm not going to win the war, because they will keep sending people after me until they win the war. Why? Because they have an unlimited number of immoral men willing to commit immoral actions, because they have soaked up the same indoctrination that everybody else has. They believe they're here for the good. No, you're not. Even if you go into it with that attitude, the second that you go into the police academy, you should realize what it is. They are government law enforcement agents. That's what they've always been. They've never been peace officers like the sheriffs were supposed to be, in the late 1700s, early 1800s. Law enforcement. This is the law. We're going to enforce it. You know who else was law enforcement officers? The Redcoats. You know who else? The Gestapo. You know who else? Oh, brain fart. Red Army under Stalin? That don't sound right. What was Mao's boys' names? All law enforcement. So until you get it through your heads, who is truly the enemy of freedom, the enemy of individual rights, which makes them the enemy of the people, and they do this bullshit. They have this virtue signaling shit of, well, I took an oath. You don't even know what you took an oath to, fuckheads. I would be happy to say that to any cop face to face, because if you took an oath and you actually believed in that oath, you wouldn't be in the position you're in, because the very position that you're taking violates that oath. But you don't know enough about the Constitution to know that. Why? Because you think just because your third grade teacher told you that the police were good and also said they're, whatever, told you what little bit about the Constitution they did, which isn't much, that they're constitutional. Nobody ever asked these questions. Somebody cite, and everybody's going to say, well, the 10th Amendment says, The 10th Amendment doesn't say that government has authority over me. That's not what it says. The government was never, if the government had authority over me, that means I'm not free. The whole concept behind the authoritize goes against everything this country was built on. Every building block of the foundation, it goes against it all. But people are so caught up in the bullshit they can't even ask themselves the simple questions. And they won't. They'll continue to complain about Nancy Pelosi or about Joe Biden or whatever. And that is part of the polarization. What happened was brilliant. Brilliant. Not brilliant in the sense that it was moral, but brilliant in the sense that it took a lot of time and planning and a lot of people to get on board. But you know what the root, you ever heard that saying, the root of all evil? Money. And that's the truth. Because money will make men and women do crazy things, depending on the men or women, depending on what they can justify to themselves. Me, I'm not great at justifying shit to myself. If you offered me $1 million to do some, just some simple immoral shit, I couldn't do it. I've never been that person. Even when I wasn't a great human being, and I was broke, and literally broke, didn't know how I was going to feed my kids. If you dropped $1 in front of me, I'd still tap you on the shoulder and give it back to you. That's not the kind of people we have in government. We have the kind of people in government that have multi-millions of dollars in their banking account, and they're still trying to figure out how to scam you because it's not enough. The problem is with us and them is they've created a barrier. What does that mean? So like if you're a criminal, greed will get you. In the end, it is always greed that gets you. Doesn't matter if you're selling drugs, if you're a thief, if you steal cars, no matter what it is, breaking the houses, greed will be what gets you. Every time. You will go in that last house or steal that last car or sell that last ounce, and before you do it, you'll say, this is the last one. I'm only doing this for another month. Just until I stack 100 bands. And then greed got you. Somebody will snitch. You'll get pulled over. There'll be somebody home. It'll be a bait car. But greed don't get them. You know why greed don't get them? Because they take your money and they pay their enforcement, which won't enforce anything on them, to keep you in check. And until that stops, there's never going to be repercussions for their actions. See, in the beginning of the country, if the elected officials made a screw-up decision, they would have to come back to their homes in the community. If they lived right here, they would have to come right there. And if they made a screwed up decision, I walked over and said, hey, Miss Mary, what'd you do this weekend? She says, well, we thought you'd be safer if we banned bump stocks. I'd punch her in the mouth. And then guess what would happen? She wouldn't be talking that gun control shit no more. Because when she went up there, she'd be like, whoa, wait a second. I ain't signing that bill. I live next to freedom. And I'm going to have to face some shit if I go back there. And the community agrees with him because they didn't arrest him when he punched me in the mouth. So if I sign this, you know what's going to happen to me? But see, nobody would be saying that shit because everybody would have the same problem, which would be us. But they've created policies. Then they hired their enforcers to enforce those policies, which makes it impossible for us to make them face the repercussions for their actions. We can't give them what they deserve because of the policies they put in place, the immoral people that will enforce those policies, because we have fear instilled in us, because they'll put us in jail. They'll kill us and justify it. So until we get rid of that problem, either A, get rid of the problem, or B, recognize what that problem is, there's no changing it. And then once we recognize what the problem is, it's still going to take everybody standing up to it. Which means, as of right now, you have about 1 out of 500 chance, 1 out of every 500 people that would take a stand against the police. And I'm not talking about taking a stand like fighting. I'm talking about taking a stand like, screw you, you don't have authority over me, I will not comply. And I'm not saying I will not comply burying shit in your backyard and hiding shit. No. I'm talking about will not comply. In your face, look, bitch, it's right here, and you're not going to do nothing about it. Not comply. That's not complying. Not complying isn't hiding the shit. Not complying is not putting it in their face, but putting it in their face and saying, look what I got. What are you going to do about it? That's non-compliance. That's for real non-compliance. But nobody's going to do it. Do you know why? Because we don't back each other up. You see, you know why police act all crazy and shit? Because all they got to do is hit a button and they got all the backup they need. It's just you. Shit, we'll hit a button and get 20 more cars full of cops here. Why? Just because they have a uniform on. For no other reason. They won't know each other, know nothing about each other, don't know if they beat their wife, touch little kids, nothing. But they'll still back them up because of the uniform, because they've been trained that way. To the contrary of that, we've been trained just the opposite. We've been trained to stay out of each other's business. They've driven a wedge in not only in the communities, but in the families also. You see families now where the cops will show up and they'll arrest somebody. Not happening. You come to my family gatherings and try to arrest somebody. Listen, I've been my brother's wedding. I shit you not. I wish I had video of it. There was a brawl at the wedding reception. A brawl. I'm talking 30 people fighting. And the cops showed up. Somebody called the cops. You know how many people they took out of there? None. You know why? Because it was made clear that if they took anybody, there was going to be a bigger issue than the brawl. We can handle this ourselves. We don't need you. And now we're all still happy family. We still go to each other's weddings. It's time to stop complaining. It's time to take a stand. Everybody's had their lines in the sand. Everybody's been jumped over. But I don't carry the little Etch-a-Sketch with me that I shake up every time somebody crosses my line. I have no more lines. I don't want no problems. I just want to be left alone. More than I want to be left alone, I want you to be left alone. But in order to get left alone, we're going to have to take a stand together. So how do we do that? We all live so far apart. I don't know. I have an ideal, but it takes sacrifice. It takes commitment. People are unwilling to leave. The biggest part about creating a community is everybody wants you to come to them. Everybody. Hey, let's create a community. All right, well, I know where a great place is at. Where's that? Right here where I live at. It's because what's comfortable to us or what we already own or already have or whatever. Nobody's willing to say, you know what, fuck it, we're selling it, moving out. That's what we're doing. We're selling this place and we are going to some place where we think that either there's already a partial community there and hopefully we can build a bigger community. And then when that happens, then it becomes, here's where we stand. We will not let you, and yes, it's a let because there's more of us than them. We will not allow you to mess with anybody. And then hopefully by the time they decide to send in the hellfires, the community is so big that they can't send in enough hellfires to destroy it. And then if they do send in something to destroy it, the rest of the community fights. It's not about living. It's not about surviving. It's about the next generation, making sure my kids are free. That's what it's about. People's going to say, well, how are they going to be free if they're dead from hellfires? Well, you know what? Sometimes to play the game, you got to roll the dice. I spoke a while back about felons and why they really took the guns from felons. Could you imagine if the Virginia rally had the scary felons there carrying firearms? How many of them do you think would have took their firearm off to enter the cage? I'll tell you how many. 0. How many do you think would have still entered the cage? I will tell you how many. As many that wanted to. Because they don't comply with what they're told. Whether it's moral or immoral, doesn't matter. Not for this conversation. They do what they want to do. So government has made them this scary subgroup of our society. Second-class citizens. They've convinced you that they're scary and shit. I hear people all the time talk about creating communities and how terrible the government is, and they always are sure to add criminals in there. Unless you're talking about a kitty toucher, a rapist, a murderer, there's nothing that people can't come back from. Those things, I mean, you really can't come back from those things. If you're just an immoral, evil bitch, you can't come back from those things. You know, if you kicked in a garage door or two when you were a kid to buy some weed, heroin, whatever, hey, I get it. You used to use drugs, I get it. You know, we don't look at heroin addicts the same way as we do alcoholics or even as gambling addicts, but they're all the same. I would say that gambling is probably the worst of the three addictions, followed up closely by alcoholism, followed up next by tobacco when you're talking about deaths, maybe. But people are they're so easy to jump. They've soaked up so much of the indoctrination, they just believe the bullshit. It's not about what's right, wrong, true, false. None of that shit matters. It's about what we've been told, and people just can't see through the bullshit. So how does it change? I don't know. Nobody, if I was king today, and I said, hey, I'm king for the day, and everybody has to listen to me, I'd say sell everything you own. We're going to move to this place, and we're going to get down there and get established, and then we are going to make it clear that we will not be ruled over anymore. That we just want to be left alone. We're going to claim our independence, not so much from the Constitution, just from the government itself, until it represents us. And hopefully we'd just be left alone to live our lives. That would never happen, though, because all they would wait is for us to get old, and then they would rule over our kids. So, I want to tell this story one last time, and I'm never going to tell it again. The founders could have sent one man, one person, to assassinate King George. King George was ruling over them, right? So the idea would be kill King George and we'll no longer be ruled over. The problem with that logic is that somebody would take King George's place. The enforcement arm was already in place and it would roll on. Just like you see sheriffs. Sheriffs are elected. When they come into office, shit don't change. It just keeps going. The same deputies are there they make careers out of the shit. So they claimed independence. They peacefully tried to separate. Hey, we just want to be left alone. You stay over there. We're going to stay over here. You do what you do. I'm going to do what I do. Everything will be fine. When King George sent his enforcers, the founders added holes in them, give them some ventilation, and they did it to the point to where the rest of the redcoats copped deuces and said, you know what, guys, we're not doing this no more. And then King George said, you know what? What can I do? I can't come fight you myself. That's where we're at. That's where we've been. It's always been the enforcement is the problem. Yes, the ones giving the orders are the problem. The ones enforcing the orders are the problem. Without the immoral men willing to collect money to commit immoral actions, the order wouldn't happen because they would know better. And when that is that way, you have authority over your government. That is how it is supposed to be. We're running out of time, people. Every day I wake up, I get out of bed a little slower. I'm a little more sluggish. The day will come when the people who have the will in them to live and the will in them to die will no longer be able to do much more than talk. Well, I have noticed lately, though, is that most of the keyboard warriors have went into hiding. Who knows what's going to happen? Hopefully it works out for the best for everybody. Because I don't want to see nobody harmed. But then again, you got these immoral pieces of shit that can make $100,000 a year sitting on their ass writing tickets. Why do you think they pay them pricks so much? Why do you think they exempt them from all these laws? It's a benefit. The more benefits you have, the better the job is, right? When you base it on pay, health care, get a car you get to drive to and from work, a gas card to put gas in it, they change the oil for you, put tires on, all paid for by the public. And then you enforce the king's rule on the public. You state hired thugs out there should be ashamed of yourselves. Your mom would have never known she was raising a bitch, would she?